So how did we meet? I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Cúcuta, Colombia. It's a city on the far northeast corner of Colombia. And we had our, I guess, interlocutor, a group that we worked with, was the Colombian Coffee Foundation. And at that time, in the United States, there was a book out, there was a group called the Beat Generation, and they had published a series of books. And there was a similar group in Colombia called the Nadaistas, the Nothingists. And the leader of that group had written a book, his name was Gonzalo Arango, which was called Sex and Saxophone. And I didn't have it, I couldn't find it, I looked all over for it. And we had this friend said, well, there's this new woman who's come up from the capital city to organize a national coffee growers, coffee producers convention. Since she just came from the capital city, she probably has it. Go talk to her. So I went in to this office, and sitting behind the desk in a yellow dress with a smile that illuminated the room, one of those smiles that just doesn't say on your lips but moves up to the eyes. She said, how can I help you? And I knew that I was going to ask her out.
And I did have the book.
And we started going out. There was a connection. It was chemistry in the truest sense of the word. I knew that I wasn't going to let this lady get away from me, and I was going to do whatever it is that I needed to do. And someone asked me sometime, what is it that keeps you still in love with her at even a deeper sense than before? It'd be easy to talk about intelligence or wisdom, which are both there, also physical attraction, but I think for me it's more than that. It's her. Rosy is probably the most authentic person anyone will know. You see her, and who she is who she is. There's no false facade. There's a spontaneity. She has this wonderful, empathetic heart. I think the other is trustworthiness. She will be there for you.
When we began to see each other more often, he used to come to my office in the afternoon to take me home, and we used to walk in the streets and talk a lot. And I was very surprised to know how much he knew about Colombia, about the history, about the culture, about the customs that we have. And so I enjoy very much listening to him. I am a social worker. That was my profession when I was young. So I kind of observe him, the way he treated the poor people that he worked with, and the way he was too with the people who were at the high levels of government, the governor, the mayor, all this. It was the same. So for me, admiration of his character was an eye-opener. And I like to watch him talk, and he spoke perfect Spanish. And his attitude, admiration was perhaps my first emotion for him. And it has been wonderful to know too that through the 57 years that we have, married, yes, it has lasted. For both of us, we have similarities in character, we like to help, we like to be in solidarity with the poor. We talk about the themes of justice in Colombia, and we talk about different cultures, what he experienced in his culture and what I experienced in mine. We're Catholic, both of us. So it was a lot of themes that from the beginning, as young as we were, we like to talk about. So that was ¿cómo se dice gancho?
A hook, a connection.
A connection. It was a connection for both of us. Those times in Colombia, a young girl, a young lady, and Mary, she could not go with a boyfriend. She cannot have a boyfriend. Go out with a boyfriend without a chaperone. So
we never went out alone until after we were married. Always had to drag her sisters or a brother.
Well, it became a very difficult thing for me because I knew too about American culture, that it was a more freedom in that, and so I began to feel nervous every time he asked me, can we go out for lunch? Can we go to the movies? I said, oh my God, what am I going to do?
All I want to do is hold your hand.
He held my hands. And of course, holding hands in that time, unless he was a boyfriend recognized by your father and your mother and your neighborhood, you could not do it. So every time he wants to hold my hand, I just went like this in order not to hold his pen. But it was a difficult time within months later because my mother was upset when she knew that he was bringing me home. It was
that we were serious.
Yeah, that we were becoming serious. She was scared to death, mostly because she said, I don't know him. I don't know, and he's going to take you to America and I will never see you again. So she was
and they have divorce there.
And then she has a divorce.
He's going to take you there.
Divorce.
And abandon you.
So all of that was in my mother's thing. It got to the point one time that he left me at the door and he just kind of gave me a tender kiss. And by that time, my father was coming. And he saw that. And he was really, really upset at me. And he just...
It was a public kiss.
It was a public kiss. And he just said, you will never do that again. It's your family name that you are... All those things that happens in a culture at that time. Now it's more freedom than before. Next day, when Tony came to look for me, I decided I'm going to have lunch with him to explain that I cannot continue and the reasons why. So I explained, I said, I'm sorry, don't want to continue with the anxiety or telling you not to, or to explain you, or to lie to you why I cannot go.
She was trying to let me down easily.
Well, I really feel like I needed to do, even though by that time I was very much in love with him. I really like him. Me, it was very hard. And then he said to me, now you said.
I just said, okay, if you have this problem and you feel this way and the culture is that way, let's get married. To which she said,
okay. And we say, okay. I say, okay, because I couldn't sleep the night before thinking about that I needed to let him go. And so I just impulsively, I say, okay.
But she said, you'll have to ask my parents for my hand.
That's the
And it was one of those things I said, okay. So she went home to prepare them that I was going to show up. And I showed up, let's say it was 7 o'clock, that I was meet with her father to ask for her hand. And her mother too, but it was more the father. So I showed up at, if it was 7 o'clock, I showed up at 5:30 and walked around the block practicing my speech or what I was going to do. So the time came, 7 o'clock, I went up and knocked on the door, and I think it was one of my sisters-in-law opened the door, and the whole family was in the room. My mother and father-in-law were here. There were an aunt, there were some cousins. All of her brothers, she has 9 brothers and sisters, were all there. And I saw that, and everything went out. I grabbed her hand and grabbed my sister-in-law. That sister-in-law was her sister, and said, "We're going to the movies now, I can't do this," which is what we did. I went back at a later date to talk to my father-in-law one-on-one. And I said, "I'd like to marry your daughter. I'm asking your permission." And his response was, "Sure, no problem. All you have to do is to remember that she will always have a home back here. You're to take care of her." And more or less tried to do that.
We got married, and that was the first day. And then our life began to unify all those little things that I told you. Went back to these days, and it was a shock for me, the culture, how Americans dress, and how a lot of things was a shock and different in many ways. And I couldn't speak English, and so it was difficult. But my mother-in-law received me with such a love and tenderness, and she spoke Italian to me, so that was the way to communicate. So we really had a wonderful friendship with my mother-in-law, my father. I was the only girl for her in her life, so it was really good for a while. I got pregnant before I left after I married, and then I got to the States and was pregnant. She was very attentive to me. We had our first son in Philadelphia, and right after, Tony was desperately looking for a job because we wanted at their house, at their parents' house. And so he got an interview to go into the State Department, and he passed with brilliant colors. And so one day they called and they say, "Would you like to go to Laos?" 1964. So
We had a baby.
And we had a baby, our first son. So he said, he asked me, "Would you like to go to Laos?" I didn't know where Laos was, to be honest. So I said, "Yeah, okay, we go to Laos." So that was the beginning of our adventure. In Laos was, oh my God, for me, it was even a shock. A different language, different customs. We went to a tiny little village called Ban Hui Sai, where no American has ever gone before. No bathroom, no water, no electricity. So we have to deal with that. And so it was an experience for both of us. But it unified us more than separate us. We were say we are going to be like pioneers. We are going to do it. So, like every marriage, a lot of downs too. Every time we have to move, I was lonely and starting a new life, new schools, new houses, and all of that.
Important to recognize that it was not all easy or peaches and cream. There were real difficulties in the relationship, in the terms of I guess, unifocus is the way I would put it, on my career and getting ahead and doing things. I think basically lied to myself in many ways that I was doing what I was doing for the benefit of my family, and really it was for myself. Over the long run, that could have been created a difficulty. I think really it was at midlife, I had an encounter, I call it an encounter with God, probably a spiritual awakening. The result of which was actually developing a deeper proximity with God. In my own case, she always had it. I was a nominal religious person in the sense that if you asked, I would say yes. I believe in God, yes, I am a Christian, I go to church on Sunday, but it was nothing in terms of a deeper personal relationship. That deepening relationship forced me is probably a better way, to look inside. I had to review where I was and who I was. And by doing that, I had to confront myself on certain points. And with this deeper connection to God, it got me to a point where I could see issues and then work to correct them. And I think that working to correct them, which still happens even today, has deepened our relationship. I certainly think that I'm more conscious of who Rosy is and what her needs are, and in my own incomplete way attempt to fulfill those. If I had to sort of sum up, Rosy is a life-enhancing presence in my life. And I love you, babe.
Thank you. I always feel like giving images. It was like a tree, and suddenly one person go this way and the other that way. And so you find yourself asking who you are at least for me, asking myself my role of mother, which almost gone because we have 3 kids, wonderful kids, but they needed to come here to school. So when they left, of course, I just feel asking myself questions, now what? Now what is it for me now? We gave each other that opportunity for me to ask the same questions. What are my values? How do I see myself? Which has been really all from that beginning, which was in Honduras, that we begin to ask those questions. And the more the questions that he asked for himself, and I asked for myself, then we have another theme to talk about it. And it was easy for us to build up our friendship and our honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Now I understand why this and this bother me.
Talk without confrontation.
Yeah.
Which means I think we're better at receiving gentle criticism of each other and from each other because we know what's behind it, that it's not just to criticize or one up and one down.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Yeah, that is the way that we have dealt with our lives in every place and since then. And it has been wonderful as father and mother, because then our children ask us questions. they are wonderful kids. We are so very proud of them. Unfortunately, well, they are all divorced. And so we are able at this point of our lives to talk to them about the pain that we had before, but how pain is possible to look as a blessing too, which is how we feel our
To not
life
flee
now.
from it, but to
Yeah.
work with it.
Work with it. And I find it funny how the Lord works in one's life. And it is, He chose a little bit about who you are and wait for us to work it until He goes back and shows another thing. So that is the way I feel that our lives evolve. That's what we have to say.